There's a hereditary condition in my family.
Suddenly, a sharp cry emanated from the room down the hall.
Who's that?
It's my first cousin. He's been living up here ever since his father abandoned him. It's important that you know about him, Myra, so you know what could happen to us.
As he said this, Myra knew definitely and unmistakably that
She could never marry him.
and for the first time in her life,
fainted dead away. When she next recovered full consciousness, she was in bed.
for a minute she lay there, listening idly as the hall clock struck 2.
Bong.
And you want to marry my son, Norton?
Chauffeur sick! Do your duty.
And then her overwrought nerves jumped in terror as she heard again that child's cry from the room down the hall. In a quick panic, she crept toward Knowlton's room. She found she could see through the crack, and after a single glance, all thought of entering left her. Before an open fire, his head bowed in an attitude of great dejection, stood Knowlton, and in the corner, feet perched on a table, sat Mr. Whitney, very quiet and calm. Seated on the table was a part of Mrs. Whitney.
A bald Mrs. Whitney.
On her cheeks was the faint stubble of a beard, and in her mouth was a large black cigar, which she was puffing with obvious enjoyment. As Myra scanned the room, she saw they were all there. The chauffeur, old Mr. Wolfe, and all the other guests from the party.
1,000?
groaned Knowlton, as if in answer to a question.
Try 2,500 and you'll be near the truth. I got a call from Graham Kennels today, and they're soaking me for $2,500 for those poodle dogs, and saying they want them back tomorrow.
Well, said Mrs. Whitney in a low baritone voice.
Send him back? We're through with them.
But that's just a mere item,
Continued Knowlton glumly.
including your salary and Appleton's here, and that fellow who did the chauffeur and all the rest. I'll be paying bills for one thing or another for the next month.
Well then,
Said Mr. Appleton.
for pity's sake, pull yourself together and carry through to the end. It's a cinch that she was after your money.
Outside, Myra flushed crimson. She leaned closer to the door, biting her lip until she could taste the faintly bitter savor of blood.
I guess you're right, but that look in her arms just before she fainted, I believe she loves me. If there's anything I could do, anything in the world that would smooth things over, I believe I'd do it.
See here, my boy, you saved yourself an unhappy marriage and your family a lot of suffering.
You beat her at her own game.
But Myra waited to hear no more.
My heavens!
Her pride refused to let her think that it was a deliberate plan of Knowlton's. It was all unspeakable, unthinkable.
My heavens!
At 8 o'clock the next morning, when she emerged from her room and walked into the garden,
Myra was a very self-possessed young lady.
turning the corner, she saw Knowlton seated on a stone bench.
His head in his hands.
In an attitude of profound dejection,
Good morning.
said Myra quietly.
Sit down.
He began nervously.
Myra, I've done a ghastly thing. To you, to me, to
I
us.
want to talk
I want
to
to
you.
talk to you. I've got to talk to you.
Myra nodded and, taking a seat beside him on the bench, clasped her knees with her hands and half closed her eyes.
I've done a ghastly thing. To you, to me, to us.
What do you mean?
Myra, Mr. Whitney is not my father.
You mean you were adopted?
No, I mean, Ludlow Whitney is my father, but this man that you've met isn't Ludlow Whitney.
I know.
Said Myra coolly.
Knowlton
Appleton, the actor.
leapt to his feet.
You, how on earth?
Myra lied easily.
I recognized him immediately. I saw him 5 years ago in the Swiss grapefruit.
At this, Knowlton seemed to collapse utterly.
You knew.
Of course. How could I help it? It simply made me wonder what it was all about.
With great effort, Knowlton tried to pull himself together.
I'm going to tell you the whole story.
I'm all ears.
It all begins with my mother.
He began passionately.
His mother was extremely possessive.
His parents were away in Europe.
And he had promised.
He would not see any girl more than twice.
And then I met you. Oh, Myra, you're the first girl I ever thought of marrying. It's almost as if you were making me love you by some invisible force.
I was.
Knowlton continued that his mother had written him, saying that she was bringing home some English girl for him.
Lady Helena something or other.
And on that same day, he heard from Appleton that he had been caught.
By the most famous husband hunter in New York.
And the plan was hatched.
Finish.
Well, it all went perfectly. Until... Oh, Myra, when you fainted in my arms, helpless as a baby, I knew I loved you.
He burst out with a wild plea of passionate sincerity.
Oh, Myra, if by any possible chance you can bring yourself to forgive me, I'll do anything you want. I'll marry you today. Let my family go to the devil.
There was a long pause.
You're perfectly sure?
Yes, very.
Very well. I'll marry you today. We can go into town and get a license this morning. And I'll call up my cousin, who's a minister in the First Presbyterian Church. We can go west tonight.
Oh, Myra, you're a marvel.
The next 2 hours passed in a whirl.
And by 10 o'clock, they were bowling toward the city,
City Hall, Tiffany's, 68th Street.
where they were in the house of
Reverend Walter Gregory.
a sanctimonious gentleman.
With twinkling eyes and a slight stutter.
You may kiss the bride.
All aboard!
Before long, they were sitting in their compartment on the Broadway Limited.
Oh, darn! I forgot my bag. I must have left it at Cousin Walter's in the excitement.
Oh, never mind. We'll get you a whole new outfit when you get to Chicago.
She glanced at her wristwatch.
No, I've still got time to call him and send it on.
All aboard. Woo! Woo!
Don't be long, dear.
Oh, you know I couldn't. 2 minutes, darling.
Outside, Myra ran swiftly along up the steel stairs and into the great waiting room, where a man met her.
A twinkly-eyed man with a slight stutter. How did it go, Myra?
Splendid. Oh, Walter, I almost wish you'd join the ministry so you could officiate when I really do get married.
I haven't figured out what the fella did to you, Myra.
You never will, I hope. But he's getting off easy. Far too easy. If I'd had more time, I would have made him lease an apartment and buy furniture.
Walter hailed Myra a taxicab.
I can't thank you enough, Walter.
So, what are you going to do with the rings, Myra?
Myra looked laughingly at her hand.
That's the question. I may send them to Lady Helena something or other. Then again, I've always had a strong penchant for souvenirs.
Woo! Woo!
Walter, tell the driver at the Biltmore.
Woo!